Hello everyone and welcome to the Constructive Criticism Network. This network is here to help you improve at Magic the Gathering at every level. From Pauper Leagues to Top 1000 Mythic, we've got you covered. If you want to hear the entire network, head on over to our sponsor at PureMTGO.com, where you can hear each and every show, each and every week, and check out their sponsor, MTGO Traders, and tell them that the CCMTG Network sent you. Now sit back, enjoy the show. From YouTube, podcasts, and more, here's this week's episode from ConstructiveCriticism.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 104 of the Common Knowledge Podcast. I'm your host, Christian, and as always, I'm joined by my great co-host, Colton. How are you doing tonight, Colton?
Good. How are you doing, Christian?
Oh, I've never been better. Thank you. Before we get too far into the episode tonight, I just wanted to remind everyone that Common Knowledge and all of the podcasts on the Constructive Criticism Network are sponsored by PureMTGO.com. If you would like to support the show, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Constructive Criticism YouTube channel and check out our Patreon. With that out of the way, let's get on with the podcast.
All right.
Sorry, go on, Colton.
I was just going to say the only laundry list item I had today is as you guys know, we normally talk about the upcoming major Pauper events, and currently, last time I checked on MTGO, they still do the challenges every Sunday, but beyond that, they haven't posted any showcases or anything like that, so that's all I have for MTGO right now.
Well, I mean, I guess with that out of the way, we can just sort of get into our main topic, which I'm sure the viewers have already read by now, is we're just going to be going through Double Masters and just sort of give our thoughts on the downshifts as well as a few of the much-needed reprints.
Mm-hmm. All right, so which one do you want to start on, the downshifts this time?
Yeah, we can start with the downshifts. I don't think there are too many notable reprints outside of the one big one. So.
Mm-hmm. So I went through the list and I counted 5 that were notable that could make an impact on the format. There could be others that I may have missed, but I tried my best, and from what I could find, there were 5 major downshifts. And you want to take our first one there, Christian?
Yeah, so the first one and the one that I'm probably the most excited for is Cast Down. So for those that don't know, Cast Down is 1 in a black instant, destroy target non-legendary creature. As you guys may know, there are not very many legendary creatures in Pauper.
I think there's like a couple from Legends, and they're all awful, and nobody plays them.
Yeah, but now they're a little bit better, but we can get into that. So, I mean, it's just like a staple removal spell in other formats is likely a 1 or a 2 of. But in Pauper, this likely just like straight up replaces Doomblade. Cast Down's probably already the best of the like 1 in a black removal spell like in the genre. And like just for targeted removal, like it's already had like a pretty big impact on the format. Slotting into mono black, blue black decks, the Grixis control lists that I've been seeing people been playing it. It just seems like a very solid card to me.
Yeah, in any black based mid range or control style deck, Cast Down is a pretty great removal spell. Easy 2 to 4 of depending on your list. If you're playing Doomblade or any sort of variant of Doomblade, any kind of that kind of spell, take him out and just play Cast Down. Cast Down is just strictly better than Doomblade in this format. I don't say that a lot, but it is strictly better than Doomblade in Pauper, because there's not a card that sees play in the format that it does not, that it can't really deal with super well. There's very few things that it can't deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, the one notable exception that I think that I've seen, I just want to shout out to MTGO player Diego_Brando. Diego he played Slivers in the most recent challenge, and in his sideboard was a 1 of Ramirez Di Pietro. Maybe I could have butchered that, but it's a black, blue, and then 3 generic for a 4/3 first strike legend. And you just know that Diego was just like so ready to get the mono Cast Down deck with that card.
Yeah, there's like a couple of legends, and then you can't kill a Bogle, and that's like pretty much all a cast down can't kill.
Man, it seems like nothing can kill a Bogle these days.
I mean, we have edicts, right?
Yeah, for sure. Uh,
S- So the next one we wanted to kind of talk about a little bit is Bone Picker. So those of you who don't know Bone Picker, it came out in Amonkhet, and when it first came out, I actually was seeing people were trying it around, primarily in Modern and Legacy. Ended up not really panning out. It's a 3 and a black, I think, for a 3/2 flyer, and it has and its ability is that if a creature died this turn, this card costs 3 less to cast. So if something died, it's 1 black for a 3/2 flyer. Does this remind anyone of another card in Pauper that sees a lot of play and is kind of format defining? 1 mana, 3/2 flyer. Anyone? Anyone?
yeah. Um, honestly, I have been wanting to try and build like a like a really aggressively slanted like mono black deck with Bone Picker like sort of being like the whole reason to do it, I guess.
Yeah,
Just like the fact that like just like that you can make like so many aggressive plays or like really aggressive attacks and like you just get to benefit by just like playing a 1 mana 3/2 flyer that also has death touch, by the way, which isn't irrelevant.
mm-hmm. And this card is also really good in like the blue black kind of decks where you get to play a lot of cheap removal and sometimes free removal with Snuff Out. And just
That's also true.
being able to go turn one, play a swamp, kill your dude, play a 3/2 death touch flyer is pretty strong. And I've seen people
Yeah.
playing it alongside Delvers in a tempo control style shell, along with like Gurmag Angler and stuff like that, in the blue blacklist, where you just play a bunch of stuff that kills stuff and your Delvers, so you get a bunch of 3/2 flyers easily, and you can chip in for a lot of damage really quickly.
Yeah. It's definitely a really strong card. I hope it ends up panning out. Um, again, just paying 1 mana for like such a well-statted creature is pretty much always insane.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep. So our next downshift, and this card kind of made me cringe a little when they downshifted it. I'm not gonna lie, just because I've seen some of the kind of really obnoxious and degenerate things this card can do, and that card is Mirror Retriever. So Mirror Retriever is a 2 mana 1/1 artifact creature, and when it dies, you get to add back an artifact from your graveyard to your hand. So what this card's mostly known for is if you have two Mirror Retrievers, and in modern, there was a deck called Heartless Summonings that's where it's an enchantment that's 1 and a black, and your creatures cost 2 less to cast, but they get -1/-1. So the whole point was you played a Mirror Retriever into another Mirror Retriever. And the first one dies. Second one gets back your first Mirror Retriever. Play the Mirror Retriever again. Get back second Mirror Retriever. You just play them again infinitely. And then you either had something like Impact Tremors that would do infinite damage, or something similar that could just drain your opponent for infinite damage. In Pauper, when this card was downshifted, I learned that the card Ashnod's Altar is legal in this format. And for those of you who are not big EDH fans and don't know what Ashnod's Altar does, it's a really, really, really old artifact. It's 3 mana for an artifact, and its whole ability is you sacrifice a creature, gain 2 mana, two generic mana. So what people are playing with this card is you play Ashnod's Altar, you have two Mirror Retrievers, and you get infinite enter and death triggers, and you play something like Reckless Fireweaver or um, Disciple of the Vault, and you can do infinite damage to your opponent.
yeah. The combo itself is very strong. I'm not sure if there's going to like be a deck that sort of like this combo can base itself around.
Mhm.
But it is it's still sort of worrying to me when stuff like this enters formats, especially like Pauper, because like to me it always seems like it's a matter of time before stuff like this becomes broken in some way.
Yeah.
Um,
I've seen people try it so far. There's not like a definitive list yet, but I feel like it's one of those things that someone's going to figure out how to make it really good. Especially when you have a lot of kind of more dopey decks that are kind of playing around the metagame right now rather than more aggressive decks. And um, combo decks like this tend to take advantage of the more grindy mid-range and control decks because they can just kind of get underneath them and go boop, I win. But they tend to struggle more against when the format's very, very aggressive because then those very aggressive decks can get underneath the, the combo deck and beat it.
it seems like this is a card that like whenever you first read it for like a downshift, like my immediate thought, and this maybe can show like how like innocent I am, I guess, whenever it comes to stuff like this. My first thought was like, oh man, this could see play in like affinity decks, and I was like, oh no. But I
Yeah.
don't know. There's like the cantrips are so good in Pauper, and then like there are even good creatures that like scry you to stuff like this. Like if you wanted to clunk up the battlefield a little bit,
Mhm.
the main one that comes to mind is like Fairy Sphere to me, just because of how cheap it is to scry to. And then like you just get like so many good blue cards, and then like obviously blue also has the protection, like Metallic Rebuke, Spell Pierce, stuff like that. So like I could see like just like a blue based combo deck that's like sort of all in and then also has the tools to back it up. And then
Yeah.
like because you're just blue based, like then like whatever, like you could splash another color potentially, or maybe even two. Like so many of the decks in Pauper do, and you probably wouldn't feel that bad about it. So there's probably a really good Mirror Retriever deck out there, and somebody's gonna find it.
Yeah. This deck is probably either going to end up either blue black, blue red, or Grixis, just because the two finishers are in red and black, the two best finishers that are available. But yeah, this card kind of concerns me because it does some really, really annoying degenerate things.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't necessarily mind Degenerate. Um, I don't know. Like I could even see like somebody had written an article. I want to say it was Alex Ullman, and he had mentioned that like you could even try like an Ancient Stirrings build with Mirror Retriever,
Mm-hmm.
and that's also like super exciting to me.
Yeah, I think like I could see Ancient Stirrings. I just don't know how well green overall supports this kind of deck. That's my only concern as opposed to blue, but I could see it being a thing.
I mean, who knows, man? Like to me, Ancient Stirrings itself might just like be good enough to like play it. Like
Yeah.
if you were like blue black because like you needed black for your finishers, and then like you just like played the like thriving lands to like just gain the access to green.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be fine.
Yeah. I don't know what the complete shelf for this deck is going to be, but I feel like it's going to come up at some point.
Now, that being said, we do like there are ways to fight it. It's
Mm-hmm.
like if it ever does become good, like weather the storm, because you do actually have to cast your mirror retrievers over and over is like one that comes to mind. It's just like a pretty good card, like a card that's already good, already sees sideboard play. Like that's just a card that you could play. Obviously, Graveyard Hate could be good against it. So there are definite ways to fight it, but even if there are good ways to fight things, I still think it's okay to be a little bit worried about them, especially like what sort of gameplay it might bring. But who knows? It could bring incredibly good gameplay.
Yeah. If this deck becomes big, remember what I told you all about Fairy Macabre. Because that card can actually beat this combo. You have to know how to time it properly, But that card is very good against a deck like this, where you just snipe where on target you just snipe the Mirror Retriever out from the graveyard.
For sure. Now, I think all the like general worry was there about Mirror Retriever. The next card that we were both, I think, relatively excited about was Everflowing Chalice.
Mm-hmm.
So, for those that don't know, Everflowing Chalice is an artifact that technically costs 0 mana, but it has multi-kicker for 2 generic. And basically, whenever it enters battlefield, I think it gets a charge counter for every time it was kicked, and then
Mm-hmm.
it taps for that much mana.
Yep.
So, typically, mana ramp is very good. I don't think anyone can really dispute that. Um, what I like a lot about Everflowing Chalice is its mana ramp that can scale. So like if you draw it and you already have like 5 mana or whatever, like you can pay 4 to play it, and then your next turn you could potentially have 7 or 8 mana. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't think that this is like incredibly broken or whatever, just because like it does take a pretty hefty initial investment to get a lot of mana. But I still do think that it's a good card that could see play in decks that feel like they need ramp.
Yeah, I think the best spot for this card, honestly, is probably in. I've heard people saying that it could see play in Tron decks. Because sometimes you'll see Tron decks every once in a while will play like Mind Stone or something, just to try to
Mm-hmm.
get, or in Modern for a while they played things like Talisman just to get that little bit extra oomph. And so people are kind of afraid of this card just being like, they do something like turn 3 Tron, boom, and then play a huge Everflowing Chalice, and then suddenly on turn 4 they have like a billion mana.
Right.
So I don't think this card's gonna be overly busted or anything. I don't think it's like, I think it'll be good. It can also just do things like in Affinity. You can just plop it down as a 0 mana artifact if you need to, or turn that into ramp as well. Just be like on turn 2, just like plop it down, plus get plus tat on. So on turn 2 you could go artifact land, Everflowing Chalice into Frogmite, and then on turn 3 you have 4 artifacts on board, and you're also up a mana. So I mean, I think it will see play somewhere. It will find a home. It's just finding out where.
Yeah. I don't know. Like you said, there are a few different decks that could take advantage of this. I will say that to me, Tron is a little bit less likely. Um, now that Tron decks are sort of trying to be another deck that adopts like Bonder's Ornament and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just think Bonder's Ornament is such a strong card that like that might at least in Tron decks sort of kick them out, especially because the Tron decks still tend to be just like a little bit slower.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Again, there are so many different flavors of Tron too, though. Like this could actually be very good in green Tron still.
Yeah. I could see it in something that's a little bit slower, or if something like Bonner's Ornament gets thwacked or something, I could see this card seeing play. It's
But
also
yeah,
really good in the Mirror Retriever deck too to help you get there.
our downshifts are just all going to be in the same deck. But
Yeah. Last card helps fight that deck though.
yeah, what is that last card, Colton?
So the last card is one of my personal favorites, and one that I do not leave home without. And that card is Abrade. You can see my 2 here. I just kind of remembered while we were talking about this and digging through, because I always keep some in sideboards of and in some like EDH decks and stuff like that, just because this card is so versatile. It's 1 in a red for an instant. Choose 1. Abrade deals 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact. This card is nuts. this You should, if you are playing red, you should put this card in your sideboard, because it's just so versatile.
Yeah, I'm also pretty high on a braid. I would say that it is probably one of my favorite sideboard cards, like
Oh
to
yeah.
just ever play. Um, I even think that a braid could again like sort of sneak into your main deck every now and again of
Hmm.
like your blue red decks. Those decks again just tend to have like a few flex slots, I guess. And like if you see like an uptick in Jeskai Affinity, or even like Mirror Retriever, like artifact combo decks, or like so many decks in Pauper rely on artifacts to some extent,
Hmm.
that mode is basically going to be relevant in most of your matches.
It's
And
eh,
that I would say in other formats is a little bit rare.
mhm.
That like that's mostly like a secondary mode, where the other mode would be sort of like the reason that you'd want it. But in Pauper, both are very very relevant.
Yeah. Just to kind of highlight how good this card is, when it was in standard, it was always in the top 5 most played cards in standard, and most time it was number 1. And it has seen play in Pioneer, Modern, and Legacy. So this card is nothing to laugh at. Just having that flexibility, especially in a deck like Fairies, where you can either kill a creature, or sometimes the issue you have with that flex slot is that sometimes that card can just be dead against certain decks, like Snap,
Mhm.
or the bounce effects are just really tend to be really awful against Tron, because
Right.
all their stuff has an enter the battlefield effect. So why would you want to reset their enter the battlefield effect?
Hmm.
But just being able to be like, they're like, turn to prophetic prism, and you're like, boop, kill your prophetic prism, knock you off colors, and they're like, oh, well, that's not very good. You can kind of use it to tempo out really really greedy decks that rely on their artifacts, and against affinity, it kills almost everything in the entire deck. And
No.
against in the mirror, it kills pretty much anything. It's like it's never the best at doing what it does, but it's never bad.
No. I think that this card is again a braid is just super solid. I'm very excited to be playing with and against it. I always have a good time whenever an braid comes up. It feels like it's like one of those like equalizing cards that Pauper might need sometimes.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, and if Mirror Retriever ever does come up, you you can use it to stop the Astronaut's Altar Mirror Retriever combo. Just please be careful. One thing to note about playing against that deck is that the sacrificing to add 2 mana is considered as a mana source, kind of like how KCI was in Modern. So it's like very very difficult to respond to.
yeah. That being said, at least like if you were to point it at like Ashnod's altar or something,
Hmm.
they would have to like at least like have like a way to either get the Ashnod's altar back, which obviously with Mirror Retrievers dying like is like very very easy.
Hmm.
So you're right, you do have to be careful. The one thing is though is like during that, even if you're not careful, you still might be able to just like set them back on mana a little bit to where they have to wait till the next turn to try and go off.
Hmm.
So you at
Yeah.
least have that going for you.
And a braid, just thinking about some other decks in the format, the only deck it doesn't really do anything against is Bogles, but it hits most of the things in Monarch, and it can also kill their 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 artifacts if you need it to. It kills pretty much everything in Fairies. It can slow down Tron. It can, yeah, it just is very very good against the current metagame. It can kill elves. It kills anything in the affinity deck. Um, against like mono black, it kills like most things in mono black. It against blue black, I mean, it can't kill Gurmag Angler, but you can kill Bone Picker and Delver with it. So against most matchups, it's typically not dead.
Yeah, I think this card is like I think probably the most like useful card out of all of the ones. Maybe like it might not be as played as the other ones, but I'm definitely like the most excited for this one.
Mm-hmm. I think this card is great. So we've covered the downshifts, and now we have some reprints to look at. What was your first pick for the downshift for the not the downshifts, the reprints, Christian?
Yeah, so I'll let you do the one that everyone's very, very excited about. Um, I know that you are also very excited about a specific card, but
Okay.
my favorite was actually Metamorphose. Um,
Mm. Mm.
Metamorphose is a very, very expensive card.
Mm.
Uh,
Let me see if here's. Mm. Mm. Yum. I love this card.
yeah, like I don't know, it was very expensive. Um, the cycling deck played it some. There were a few decks, especially like brews and stuff, that Metamorphose almost felt like a necessary card to hold those brews together.
Mm-hmm.
That I know like a few people are working on. And whenever a card like this that is like a multi-format all-star, um, like whenever it gets expensive, it's nice to just have these cards both reprinted, just so we can get them into the hands of more players. To be honest, Pauper is the premier budget format, and so having the cards played in Pauper actually be budget is fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wizards.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know what Manamorphose does, it's one and a hybrid green or red for an instant, and it simply says create 2 mana of any combination of colors, draw a card. And for those wondering why that's really powerful, I highly advise you to watch either a prowess or a storm deck, because cards that just cycle themselves for free is tends to be really good, especially ones that fix your mana.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So that for me was the most exciting card.
hmm that is a really, really great card to see again. I'm so happy that card got reprinted, because at one point it was like what, like $15 a copy or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, I got mine for I think a little bit under 15, maybe a year and a half ago.
I got
So
I got lucky and got mine for 6 apiece like 3 years ago. So
yeah. Um, the point is that Metamorphose is a very good card
hmm
that still for some reason doesn't feel like it should have ever gotten to be like $10 or whatever. So
yeah. So
what about yourself?
so my number one card is probably the card everyone's finally excited got reprinted, and I'm gonna go on a little rant about it. And that card is Oubliette. And I'm kind of hyped for this card, not just for Popper, but also for EDH. And I'm going to try to explain as quickly as possible why you should pick this card up now. So, Oubliette is 1 black for an enchantment, and it makes target creature phase out with all of their auras, but not their equipments, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. No. Actually, equipment are also phased out.
Equipment is also phased out. Okay.
Yeah.
So, this card is $5 now, which is kind of it's like between like $4 and $7 right now is what I've been seeing typically on average. And I highly suggest getting your playset now if you want to play this card, because it's going to go back up again. And the reason being is that in EDH, people realize that this card is now busted. So in EDH, making someone's commander just phase out, it makes it so it doesn't go back to the command zone, so they can't recast it. So this card literally says 1 black, your commander is now gone forever, haha. Until they can get rid of the Oubliette, which a lot of decks can't deal with. So a lot of commander players are realizing, oh, Oubliette's now really good. And commander players make up a very, very large percentage of the player base of Magic in general, and they also, especially right now, tend to be the biggest drivers of prices. So if you're going to play this card, buy your playset now. I think they finally also made it so it's not like, because Oubliette was also kind of sort of broken on MTGO and didn't make much sense to a lot of people. So I think that's part of the reason I didn't see as much play for a while, because it was on and off broken on Moto for a long time just because of how poorly it was worded. But now it actually supposedly works, and it's actually pretty good in the mono black control deck, just as a way to get rid of an opponent's threat, especially one from like mono white devotion, where you not only get to get rid of their creature, but not mono devotion, mono white heroic. Not only get rid of their creature, but also all the auras attached to the creature, like Sentinel Eyes that can come back from the graveyard. And so you can kind of 2 or 3 for 1 them sometimes. And it adds devotion for your Grey Merchant as well. So that's just like 2, 3 more draining on top of being able to get rid of a creature.
Sure. Oubliette is both a very powerful card, but it was also way too expensive.
Yeah, it was like $50.
I had a fair number of friends that had like mono black devotion and paper, but they never had like their oubliettes or whatever, and I couldn't blame them, you know.
Now, $200 for a playset of 1 card is really, really bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think oubliette is also a very, very important reprint. They had sort of been like hinting at it and promising it. So I'm glad that it eventually came. And I'm excited for people to be able to buy it and own it and get to play with it if they like.
Mm-hmm. So, now that my rant's over, what's your next card?
Yeah, so there, I think were a few more big ones. I would say that like my next like favorite reprint, and I think the last one that like I'm super excited about is Ash Barrens. Um, Ash Barrens is probably one of my favorite cards in Pauper. Just like it's mana fixing. That's also a free shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Ash Barrens, and I'm glad that it's getting another reprint. Pretty much.
Yeah, the card was creeping back up again because last reprint was in Masters 25, which was not a very well received set by the community, just kind of being a very, very crappy master set. So not a ton of it was opened because there wasn't a ton of value to be opened.
Mm-hmm.
But now with its reprint, it's gone back down again. It was I still remember back in the days when it was like $4 to $10 a copy, depending on like what week it was, because it was before that it had only seen prints in Commander decks. But now that it's a reprint, it's had 2 reprints. It's finally at a point where you can actually pick them up for a reasonable price, probably under $1 each now again.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you pretty much summed everything up. That to me was the like next really big one. There are a few other ones that I think are pretty good. If you wanted, like, if you had any more in particular to talk about.
Yeah, the last one I wanted to cover, there was a bunch of really good ones that were of cards that are just like, they're not expensive, but they're just kind of harder to find just because their age. But the biggest one to me after that was Chromatic Star. Chromatic Star is an artifact. For 1 mana, you pay 1, sack it, get a mana, draw a card. Mana of any color, draw a card. And this card's been like a $2 to $5 common for forever, just because its last printing that I know of was in 10th edition, I believe. It's been over 10 years since this card has seen a reprint that I know of. Its counterpart, Chromatic Sphere, which is almost the same card. There are some minor differences. Is like a 75-cent card because it saw a billion printings, but Chromatic Star has not seen as many printings, so it was like $3-4. So I'm happy to see it reprinted here. It's a pretty important card in an affinity lists, especially, and also in a lot of Tron lists too that I've seen. People will play it just as another way to get your mana and to kind of cycle through your deck. The card also does see play in Modern, so that's part of what drove its price up. But yeah, I'm really happy to see this card here as well.
Yeah, me too. I think that Chromatic Star is, again, it's just another reprint that had a solid effect that still may have been just like a little bit overpriced.
Mm-hmm.
It's always good to make Magic cards cheaper for people.
Mm-hmm. Reprints are great.
Yeah, and then I think another one, like other ones that I think just make for good gameplay that I'm excited to see reprinted, are like Thraben Expector, Ancient Stirrings, Galvanic Blast, stuff like that. But I don't think there was anything like too notable outside of those reprints that we covered.
Now, there's a lot of really good ones. Like we had like a full list of about 10 or 12 that are good playable cards in the format. Those are just kind of the ones that we wanted to cover as being the biggest impact price wise. Because like I think Galvanic Blast was like $1 card, Third Inspector was like $1 card. So not everything else here isn't very expensive. It just makes it easier for Pauper players to find those cards now.
For sure. Well, I guess with that, did you have anything else to say about our main topic this week?
Nope, I think that was it for this week.
Then I guess we can start moving towards what cards we like in the sideboard going into the week.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to start us off, Colton?
So my side deck, my sideboard card of the week. I'm going back on the Graveyard Hate train. With the with the downshifting of Cast Down and the downshifting of Bone Picker. That typically means that black decks are going to see more of a bump, and when black decks see more of a bump, that typically means more graveyardy stuff going on, whether it just be trying to delve out a Gurmag Angler or any sort of reanimator shenanigans or anything like that. I'm going back again on graveyard just because it's because of that. Just because more black decks equal more graveyard stuff equal you need to watch out or you can get smacked by an early Gurmag Angler, and that's not fun for anyone. So, and some decks just can't really deal with an early Gurmag Angler or an early Ulamog's Crusher or anything like that. And so, just making sure that you can keep those things out of the yard so that you can get your game plan going. Just please pack Graveyard Hate. I've seen too many people in too many formats get punished for not doing it.
Uh, I tend to agree, especially that like there are going to be people trying out like Mirror Retriever Brews, like you said. Graveyard Hate seems to be important. Um,
Yeah, it
so
hurts the cycling deck and it hurts the Mirror Retriever deck.
So with my sideboard card this week, I actually chose Red Elemental Blast. This could also be Pyroblast. Take your pick. Pretty much, from what I've seen, sort of like looking through the past couple of challenges, there's a deck that has not been seeing a lot of play, but that's been doing really well, and that is the like Jeskai Ephemerate decks.
Mm.
Just like the value like Flicker decks that are like
Mm-hmm.
relatively controlling and stuff. And the reason that I like Red Elemental Blast against them is that like pretty much I think the best way to beat those like slower like combo-ish decks is interact a little bit and then put pressure on them. And I think Red Elemental Blast being so cost efficient is a really good way to do that because you can just counter like their value creature whenever they like have to pay 4 mana for it, as well as like you can use your other mana on your turn to sort of also still be advancing your own game plan. And that to me is super powerful. And I think it's a way to fight a deck that I expect to see sort of an uptick in play now that it has a pretty high win percentage in those sort of like premier formats, I guess.
Yeah. Blasts are always good to keep in your sideboard. If you're playing blue, play Blue Blast. You're playing red, play Red Blast.
Yeah. So I guess that's going to do it for this week's episode of Common Knowledge. If you guys wanted to get in touch with us, you can find me on Twitter at JustGuyDad, and you can find Colton on Twitter at SnapBoltBaral, or you can just shoot us an email over at commonknowledgemtg@gmail.com. If you guys have any questions on the Pauper format, MTGO, or anything, you can just email us or leave a comment down below. Thanks again to our sponsor, PureMTGO.com, as well as the Constructive Criticism Network for letting us be a part of it. And last, but certainly not least, be good to each other, and thank you all for listening.
Bye, everyone.